Hi guys. I hope you can see me and hear me clearly. Yeah? Yeah? Awesome. So let's begin today's session. Keep your back and neck straight and very gently close your eyes. And start observing your breath. Watch the natural flow of your breathing as you are inhaling and exhaling. Slowly shift your attention to your posture. Just make sure you are properly aligned. So take a few moments to adjust your posture. Your back neck should be straight. Waist, neck and shoulders should be relaxed. Slowly come back to your breathing and begin to elongate the breathing. Take this time to relax your mind. Slowly begin to add retention. So after you inhale, hold your breathing for about 2 seconds and then go into the process of exhalation. We'll begin today's session with 3 Om chantings followed by 3 Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. 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 Shanti. 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 Observe the vibrations. Join the palms together and rub your palms together. Keep the palms on the eyes. Very slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, begin to open up your eyes. Start coming back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. Let us begin today's session. So today we are going to cover the remaining limbs, right, that we were discussing, right? So yesterday we talked of pranaya. We had covered till pranaya, and today we are going to move to the fifth limb, which is pratyahar. Okay, which means withdrawal of senses. P-R-A-T-Y A-H-A-R-A. Pratyahar, right? Or withdrawal of senses. Okay, so so this is the next stage in your entire practice. Till now you were working on your interaction with the society, with your own self. Then you were developing your body and your breathing, the stability in the breathing, you were getting that through the first 4 practices. And now you are ready to withdraw the senses. Okay, if before this you withdraw the senses, suppose you don't perfect asana, right? Then when you withdraw the senses, your mind, the mind also has its own fluctuations, right? So if the stability in the body is not achieved, then as soon as you withdraw the senses and you become aware of the, you become more aware of the mind and your own self, your body will, move, right? So like when you guys sit for meditation, in the classes, so your body moves sometimes, and the body is not moving because it needs to move. The body is actually moving because the mind is moving, right? So you will see a lot of people, they constantly shake their leg, or their hand is consistently moving, right? So they are not doing any physical activity at that point of time, right? It's the movement of the mind which is making the body unstable, right? So if you don't work on the first 4 practices and go into the withdrawal of senses, then you will see the body is moving, right? That instability will come up on the body. Maybe you are not able to observe the breath properly, right? So you have to first keep your body stable in order to observe other things, right? So it's very important that you go step by step. Okay, that is why Patanjali gave the 8 limbs, and he said you have to move step by step, right? So when by the time you reach this 5th part, already you have worked a lot on the development of the body and the mind, right? To keep it stable and to be able to go into deeper practices. So this 5th limb acts as a bridge between the external practices and the internal practices, right? If I want to cross a river, or maybe we are on this mountain and I want to go on the mountain that I'm seeing, so I will have to cross something, no, to reach that point, right? So this pratyahar is actually the bridge that that is acting as a way for you to reach the other side, right? So this practice allows you to withdraw the senses and direct them inwards, right? So when you gain that kind of control over the senses and you direct them towards the mind, they automatically become internal, right? They don't need any control. All you have to do is give them some direction, right? So when you give them that direction, right? They automatically come under control. There is no force, right? So when you guys, you go to sleep, right? Is there any force? No, right? And I told you, this state of sleep is very close to like, at the when the sleep state is there, then the senses are totally cut off from their objects, right? But it doesn't take any effort, right? So in that same way, when you give the senses a direction, right, and tell them that, okay, now you have to follow the mind, right, then you will not have to control them, right? We struggle so much that we have to, control this sense or that sense. It's not required, right? As soon as you develop yourself and give the senses the direction that the senses have to follow the mind, right, they automatically come under control and they go inwards, right? So then your internal journey begins. Before this, you are developing yourself for this internal journey, right? And the fifth part acts as a mediator between both, right? So according to some people, first five limbs are actually external and last three are internal. But in some places, first four are considered to be external and next four are considered to be internal, right? It doesn't matter either way, we have to go through all the processes, right? So we'll understand ourselves as we develop ourselves to move in this process, right? So the withdrawal of senses, uh, this entire process, Patanjali has said, this gives us mastery over the senses. Okay, this practice gives us mastery over our own senses. Right now, you decide. Earlier, the senses were deciding, right, and you were following. But now you become the decision maker. What thing you are exposing your sense to, or what kind of impact it is having, right? Then we become ready for the internal journey, right? So the internal journey, it starts with your dharana. Dharana, dharana or concentration. So earlier we had so many things that would engage us, no? So now what we do is we consciously give our mind one thing. Okay, like I told you guys before also. Earlier, I used to have 10 bad habits, right? But now I choose one. Okay. So every crisis, I will go for that one bad habit, right? So it's something like that. That earlier we had a variety of objects surrounding us and we were consistently engaged with them. Now, when we withdraw the senses, we deliberately choose one object. Okay, because without an object, you will be directionless. Okay, so without an object, we become directionless. We don't know what direction to take. So the object anchors us. Okay, it's like our safe house. Okay, anything is happening, you run to your safe house, no? So it's something like that. The object is very, very relevant. And this you would have covered in your meditation classes also, no? That the object, staying with the object is what you are actually doing, right? So a lot of people think that meditation is a state of thoughtlessness, right? Or there is nothing, right? It's a state of nothingness. No, you are with one object. You choose one, right? It can depend on your personality type. You guys are learning various forms of meditation. So one will definitely, you will definitely connect with one out of all of them the most, right? And that will suit your personality, right? So that is why you are taught so many meditations, right? Not because you have to do all of them, but because you should know which one is for you. Okay, there is only one that you have to choose, right? But you need to experiment with all of them to gain an understanding which one is best for your personality, right? So then you go into this process called dharana or concentration, right? over here, you are there, okay? The object is there, and then there is a consistent effort to stay connected to the object, right? Like you tune the radio, no? So consistently you are making an effort to get to the right station, right? So until you find your right station, you are doing the tuning. It is dharana. So most people sit for meditation, but they are actually doing concentration, right? And this concentration, meditation, and absorption, these are like three levels of the same video game. Okay, so level one, then it leads to level two automatically, and then when you cross level two, you reach level three automatically. There is no effort, right? It happens naturally, right? You cannot sit in a particular session and say, today I'm going to do meditation, I'm going to cross concentration and do meditation. It happens. All right, nobody can make you meditate, right? It happens. It's something that happens to you. And in that same way, when you go in the state of absorption also, it happens. Nobody can say, today I'm going to, direct them in such a way that they go into the absorption state. No. On the basis of your own personal practice and your consistent effort, you naturally transcend into the third one also, right? So it's the concentration. If you don't concentrate, you will never be able to suspend the effort, right? So concentration will lead you to meditation, where there is an object, there is you, but the effort has been suspended, right? So earlier we had three things, right? Now we have suspended the effort portion, and effortlessly staying with the object is what meditation is, right? Like your breathing. Okay, so you are focusing on your breath. So initially we'll struggle a lot, we'll struggle for so many days, we will struggle a lot, right? But then uh, some time or the other, there will be a point where you are naturally with your breathing. There is no struggle, no, just for a few seconds maybe, right? That point is actually what meditation is, where the struggle ends and you are aware you are there, the object is there, right? And it becomes effortless. Concentration and meditation, they can be distinguished in a very with an example, right? So if I pour water from one side, right, and then on the other side I have a container and I'm pouring oil. Okay, so when the gush of wind flows by, you will see that the water breaks, no, and the oil will flow down seamlessly, right? So the water flowing is actually concentration. When the wind of thoughts come in, the concentration breaks, right? It will cause a break in that water, right? But when you do meditation, it's like the oil that is flowing, right? So the gush of the thoughts, they won't be able to break the continuous flow of the oil, right? So they are just two different levels of the same practice that you are doing. The importance of the object is present in all three practices, right? In the concentration and the meditation, and as you prolong your periods of meditation, right? So in the beginning, it will happen for 1 second, 2 seconds, right? But eventually, as you go deeper into your practice, you are able to prolong this state, right? And when this state prolongs, it leads to a deeper state, which is called samadhi or absorption. So let me write down meditation also for you. A meditation is called dhyan. Dhyana. And then your last stage. Okay. And samadhi is Samadhi, samadhi. right? So now you reach the level 3 of the video game, right? You have crossed the first two, and now you have reached the third one. Okay, so in the third one, in the second one, you were there and the object was there, right? In the third one, you are unaware of yourself, right? And you are aware of the quality of the object, right? You are absorbed in the object, complete absorption, right? So let me give you an example of all these three so that you can understand, right, what actually is happening as we go through them. So there is a very famous practice called Tratak or gazing, right? So you are actually gazing at a point, no? Right? I'll speak once you guys write, no? Okay, right. So there is this very famous meditation practice called Tratak or gazing at one point, right? It's done in a lot of places. The technique is given with a candle or, just a diya you light and you look at the flame, right? So initially when you sit for Tratak, your eyes are open and you are gazing at an external point, right? So you are trying to concentrate on the flame, right? So eventually what happens is, uh, okay, I'll write this down also. This is actually a cleansing practice, so it comes under Shat Karma, but it's an advanced level practice, so it is used as a meditative practice also. TRA with Tratak. I'll just send it, no? Yes, Tratak. So when you guys sit down, you look at a flame. So you'll be able to find this practice also easily, but it's not a part of your course. I'm just taking an example. Okay, it's a very advanced level practice, right? And it has to be performed very carefully, So whenever you don't try it on your own, just look for a teacher who can guide you. Okay, for this practice, I'm specifically saying this, right? So you basically look at a flame and your focus is looking at it without blinking, no? Just the kind of intense stare, right? So after a while, what happens is initially you struggle, right? You blink, right? And then eventually what happens, you develop your practice so much that now you are able to look at it, right, for a long period of time. So first you were concentrating. It was taking a lot of effort for you to just stay and look at the flame. And eventually what happened was, you guys, what happened, you were able to look at that flame for a long period of time. So the dharana practice, the concentration done regularly, led to a point where you were able to be with the object, right? So effort got suspended, right? And eventually what happens is, you become aware of the quality of the object in front of you. So when you light a diya, right? So you become aware of the quality of light, right? You are absorbed, right? Now the physical appearance, the movement of the flame, nothing is going to matter. You become aware of the essential quality of your object, right? Which is light. Yeah. So whenever you light something, it illuminates. This luminous quality is what you become aware of when you intensely connect with something, right? So when this absorption happens, you're not aware how your body is or any pain developing in your body. You are completely absorbed in the object, and that stage is actually called samadhi, right? So all these stages, they can occur together also when you go for one sitting, right? And then you can come back also. So these are not like those video games where, after crossing one level, you don't go back, right? you come back. Okay, so again and again, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, then again, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, right? Concentration, meditation, absorption, right? Until you reach a point of absorption from which there is no coming, right? So samadhi has different types. Okay, till a particular point, you come back. But after crossing a particular point in samadhi, you don't come back, right? Then you are absorbed with the object, right? And the last stage of samadhi is called kevalya, which is the final goal. Actually, when Patanjali ji he talked about, wait, let me write down first. Kevalya. So this is actually the point that you are looking for, right? This is the final point. So samadhi is not the final point. Samadhi also further has a lot of divisions. And in that, there is a final point called Kevalya. So the last chapter, when we were discussing the Yoga Sutras also, it's called Kevalya Pad, right? The chapter which tells you about this final point. And you have to reach this. And I told you, Keval, this term means isolation, right? So this point is only achieved when the yogi isolates. Before that, you can exist in society, you can practice in society, but one point of time, you go in isolation, right? So this is very, very advanced stage. Right now, we don't have to live our lives, right? We are not ready to, yeah. But eventually, when you are very close to your final goal, there comes a point of isolation. In all the if you read about the lives of various yogis, you will see at one point of time they isolate themselves, right? Because this can only be achieved alone, right? Nobody can do the work for you. Okay, if somebody would be very, very, noble or virtuous, they will show you the way, they will show you the path, right? But nobody can do the work for you, right? All of you have to do the work for yourself, right? You can only achieve some guidance, receive some kind of checkpoints, right? But apart from that, all of us have to walk our own paths, and it's going to be a very unique walk. All of us are going to have our own set of experimenting with ourselves, getting to know ourselves better, right? So the path has to be walked on our own, right? That is why finally there is isolation, right? Nobody can achieve this final goal for you, right? It's as if you guys are thirsty and I'm drinking the water, right? Will your thirst be satisfied? No, right? So you have to drink the water, you have to eat the food to satisfy your hunger. I cannot do it for you, right? So this is very, very clear to the yogi, right? And this is this should be very, very clear to you guys also. No, if some of your friends are practicing asanas and you want to gain the flexibility, you cannot. No, you have to move your body, right? You have to do the practices daily, right? So it's your path. Okay, even though it's a general path, you begin to understand your own way of proceeding, right? There are some guidelines which will help you to take the steps, but all of you have taken the first step, and it's hardest to take the first one. No, it's so hard to step out of the room in winters. No, but once you do, you just go out for a stroll, right? But taking the first step is very, very difficult, right? But all of you guys, you're sitting over here, so you have taken your first step, right? Tomorrow we'll end our classes. So after this, it's your own dedication which will help you to see how for how long you are walking, right? Or what kind of stroll you are taking, right? But you have definitely stepped out of your house. Okay, after these classes tomorrow and then, I can assure you that you have stepped out of your house, right? But after this, your journey will depend on you, right? What kind of time you are able to make, or what kind of space you are able to give to all your practices, right? So these are the 8 limbs of yoga, right? Ashtanga Yoga, which help you to start from the beginning and reach till the end, right? Any doubts so far? No doubts? All right. So today we are going to begin with a very interesting topic, right? That was supposed to be the main topic for today. Obstacles. Right now, everybody tells us, okay, walk on this path, do this thing, do that thing. No, Kevalya is not the 9th limb. It is the final point of the 8th limb. It is the final point of Samadhi, right? So the question was, is Kevalya the 9th limb? So Kevalya is not the 9th limb. It's the uh, last point of Samadhi. There are various types and forms of Samadhi, right? So when you read the Yoga Sutras, if you uh, want to, after the classes, I gave you the names of 1 or 2 books also, right? So there you will read more about it, what divisions are there, okay? So today we are going to talk about a very interesting and common topic, right? Which is obstacles. Now I told you guys, you should do this, you should do that. This is probably a better way of doing things, right? But still we are not able to do it. No, we know so many things, but we are not able to do them, right? And because it's not only because we are unable to do them, right? I told you guys yesterday, you are enough, right? But there are some obstacles that come in the way, right? The mind doesn't want to be controlled. Who wants to be controlled, right? The mind, it has directed you throughout your life, right? So now when you begin to control it, it will place some obstacles. So it's not your doing that you are unable to follow up on the practices, right? There are some obstacles that come on your path, but you should be aware of them. As soon as you become aware of them, you are able to understand that this is, you are able to come out of the self doubt, and you are able to recognize that this is an obstacle, right? And when once you give it that recognition, you are able to step out of it, right? Because it's not your doing, right? It's happening because you are doing something different, right? The way in which that your mind hasn't been trained yet, right? So you are going in opposite training, right? So these obstacles, they will show up every once in a while, or maybe even every day, right? For me, a lot of them show up every day, right? So it's always good to be aware, right? And just put them in a box, right? So that you are able to detach yourself from them. As soon as you recognize, you give them a name, right? Then you start detaching yourself from them, right? So first thing, uh, Patanjali ji, he talked of the 9 obstacles. There are 9 obstacles in total, right? So first one is Vyadhi, Vyadhi. So this is a very big obstacle. When your physical health is not maintained, you cannot do meditation, right? If you are physically suffering from some ailment, or you happen to know someone who is suffering from any sort of ailment, their entire attention is focused on their ailment, right? That if this would have been better, maybe I would have done something more, you know or their entire attention is focused on curing themselves, right? So if suppose somebody has some kind of disease, so they are putting their entire energy towards healing that thing. That is why yoga has, in today's time, yoga is a popular form of therapy rather than a spiritual practice, right? People are using it as a therapeutic practice. Why? Because they want to cure themselves, right? So it lost the main essence, and in modern times it got molded in the way in which it could be utilized, right? So if somebody happens to be ill, they cannot step into spiritual practices, right? Because they won't be able to proceed in them. The mind is consistently stuck on the disease. If somebody has high sugar or high BP or any heart related problem, any problem, doesn't matter. It can be a very curable disease also, or it can be a disease which cannot be cured, right? But the mind is stuck on that. The first aim of the mind is to have a healthy body, right? If your body doesn't support you, you won't be able to do most of the practices, right? You will see this thing, if you have maybe any knee injury, right? Or knee pain, or a lot of people have sciatica, right? Where that nerve, it pains a lot. So they are not able to do the yogic practices, right? So this thing will be your first barrier, right? If you have disease, you will not be able to gain the kind of benefit that you should gain out of these practices. You will be able to use them as therapy, right? You will be able to do other things, but not gain the benefit of the spiritual practices. Its spiritual aspect is going to get reduced, right? Because body is not supporting. And sometimes it also happens that when you are sitting for your spiritual practices, some people, they fall ill also, right? Because the mind knows, if the mind triggers some, suppose you had something 10, 11 years ago, right? And then you come and do meditation. So sometimes some things get triggered, right? Why is this happening? Because the mind is very smart, the mind knows that that is your weak point, right? So it will immediately trigger that thing, and you will get anxious, and then you will leave your practice. So obstacle is anything which deviates you from your practice. Okay. So even though he categorized it in 9 ways, um, anything that deviates you from your practice, you can say that it is an obstacle for sure, right? It can be a better form of obstacle, or you can immediately recognize it. Both the things, they are going to stop you from your practice, right? So first thing is your vyadhi or disease, right? Then we come to the second uh, obstacle. So second obstacle is dhyan, right? Or mental disease, right? Okay. So Stan is your mental disease. So again, it works both ways. I told you in the beginning also. So a lot of people, these days they sit, they meditate because they feel very anxious, right? Or they see it as a cure for the mental disorders, right? But a lot of spiritual teachers have talked of this thing. They say that first establish your mental health and then go for practices like meditation, right? So it's like I told you guys before also, it's like you are at -10, and by these meditation practices, what you do, you come till 0, right? But actually, these practices should be started at 0 and they should take you till 10, right? So again, they're going to have the benefit, no doubt. But if you are targeting for the higher potential of a practice, then you need to have the stability of the mind, right? So if you suffer from any kind of mental disorder, right, or are very stressed, tensed, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go for higher terms like depression and anxiety. Stress is a constant part of life, right? So if you suffer from like these things regularly, then it's better to use yoga as a therapy rather than going for the spiritual aspect of it. You can still work on yourself through these practices, but the main goal is again different, right? So this thing, one is pre, right? First you establish, right? So this is like the pre part, where if you already have some kind of disorder, then just make sure that you cure it first and then enter into these practices, right? One is post. Suppose you are doing meditation, for a long period of time, and then something gets triggered within you, right? Because I told you, mind is very intelligent, so it's going to pick up the things, to distract you. When you sit for meditation, have you guys ever observed that your mind will bring up all the thoughts and conversations that you didn't want to think of? That is exactly why you came to do meditation, that you could forget, right? But as soon as you sit for meditation, all of those things come flooding back, right? Why? Because the mind knows that human beings are gripped by emotion, right? So all your worries of future, or all the hurts that you faced in your past, they are the first things that come up. It's the easiest way for the mind to stop you from controlling it, right? So it happens as a pre thing also and a post thing also, that you sit for meditation and immediately people are like, we cannot handle this, we want to go away. So there is a 10-day retreat. I don't know if you have heard of it. It's called Vipassana meditation, right? So of course, I think you would have, because you did Anapan in your meditation classes, no? So it's a 10-day course, right? And when you go for these 10 days, so you leave everything behind, no? You just have your clothes and all the essentials. Your phone is taken outside, right? And you give your books and everything also. You're not allowed to read, right? And those 10 days, you have to stay silent. Okay, so you are not allowed to talk to people also, right? 10 days, they have a rigorous schedule of doing meditation. So entire time you are in that retreat, right? Either you are sleeping, or you are eating, or you are meditating, right? These are literally the only three things you do over there, right? So a lot of people, they join the courses and in between they leave, right? Why? Because it's so overwhelming. The mind becomes so loud, when you don't give your energy to all the tasks that you are supposed to do in the day, or when you read, or when you interact with someone, it keeps the mind engaged, right? When you stop doing all of these things, then you hear how loud your mind is, right? It's very loud, no? When you are in those 10 days of silence, right? And you recognize and realize these things. So a lot of people get overwhelmed and they run away. Why? Because the stability of the mind is not established. It gets triggered, right? And it helps you to get out of that thing, right? So again, it's stopping your practice. It is a mental form of obstruction, right? For you, right? So you have to be very, very careful when you are dealing with these things, right? So your next obstacle. Samshay or doubt. Okay, SAMSHAY. So doubt has killed more dreams than any other thing could. Right? Don't you guys agree with me? It's because we doubt ourselves, we doubt what we are doing, we doubt our own potential, that we never end up pursuing what we want to pursue. Most people who have a dream, they don't pursue it only, right? Because of this fear, this doubt, will we be able to do it? Will we be able to follow through, right? Will we get the right opportunity, right? So this doubt again deviates you from your path, right? No matter what you choose to do in life, doubt is going to be the first thing that creeps in. Generally speaking, you will take a lot of time to make a decision because you have so many doubts, right? That will everything work out? Will I be able to do it? Will this person be able to do it? Will that situation turn out the way I'm anticipating it to turn out, right? And in that same way, when you enter the spiritual practices, it's the doubt which will take you away, right? So suppose you doubt your practice, okay, whatever you are doing, you are just like, I don't think, I'm not too sure if it will help me or not, right? So this doubt will never allow you to practice to your capability, right? To your highest capability. If you keep doubting the practice, I've had a long discussion with you guys about doubt in earlier classes also, right? If you have a doubt in who is teaching you, right, then and in yourself, that is the highest one. Okay, if I keep telling you, you are great students, you are doing very well, right, and you are practicing and you are seeing the practices changing you, but then this little thought comes up, when or how will I do that asana, right? Will I be able to do it? I know my thighs are not that, they don't, my hip joint doesn't open so easily. So full split, maybe not for me. Right. So your teacher is consistently telling you, you are a good student, you are a hard worker, you will be able to do it. You are constantly practicing, seeing that the practice is working, day by day your flexibility is increasing. But this small thought that comes up in your mind, right, which makes you doubt yourself, it's going to stop you, right? Eventually, it's just a tiny thought, then it grows. And eventually, you end up leaving your practice, completely abandoning the practice, right? And this is something you have to be very, very careful of, right? So, we are, these things, they seem very small, right? It's just a small thought that comes up, but it's this thought that grows, because you have to be very, very careful. All the little things, you have to be careful of them, not the big ones. The big ones are just a product of the tiny ones. No, first the seed needs to be planted, no, for the flower to grow, right? So these are seeds, no, and the sooner you become aware, right, the sooner you will be able to remove them, right? Like, these are like weeds growing in the garden, right? You have to remove them, and you have to constantly remove them. They will keep coming back, right? So the sooner you become aware that, oh, this has started happening, the sooner you will be able to remove them, and the less impact they will have. But you have to do consistent cleaning, right? You have to consistently take care of something, like if you have a pet, you have to consistently take care of them. Or if you have a garden, right, you go love to grow plants, you have to consistently take care. So with these obstacles also, you have to be consistently aware, right, so that you can tackle them and take them out from their root, not just trim them from above. You have to take them out of their root so that they don't hinder your practices, right? So tomorrow we are going to continue with this, okay? All the remaining obstacles that are present, okay? Any doubts in today's session? Doubts? All right. So, okay, guys, tomorrow we will finish this, and let's see how much we are able to, if we are able to do more also tomorrow. Some little things that I can give to you at the end so that you can incorporate those things in your life. Okay, so let's end our session for today. Sit straight, keep your back and neck straight, and very gently close your eyes. We'll end the session with one Om and three Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Om. Shanti. 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 Join your palms together and gently bow down. We'll begin our day with a sense of gratitude, being grateful for everything we have. Begin to rub your palms together. Place them on your eyes. Very slowly, while blinking and looking at your palm, begin to open up your eyes, start coming back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. I will see you all for your pranayam class in the afternoon. Take care, guys, and bye-bye.